morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today we need to take a look at some surprise price spikes which have come around in Paldean Fates. And this seems to happen more and more with English sets than it ever does over in Japan. We just pick a bunch of random cards for no particular reason, and we just start pumping up the prices. And the interesting thing about what I found when I was having a look this morning, it's not the obvious ones. Now, I showed you the other day that the prices of Paldean Fates are generally crashing, and that's true. Like, if we're talking about the shinies today, right? Your ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill, the non-EX shinies, baby shinies, as some people might say. There are a couple of obvious ones that we would expect to be high. And that's basically Pikachu and Charmander. And if we have a look at Pikachu, what we find is people were starting off trying to sell it pre-sale for $68, which is obviously too high. And it's fallen down to about $30, but would have last sold at $26.40. Pikachu is not spiking up in price, and don't get me wrong, Pikachu is still the number one of the single price shinies, and it's always gonna be, don't get me wrong, but the price is doing exactly what we would expect. The price is falling quite nicely. The set comes out, the hype dies down a little bit, more people get hold of product, it goes down. And the same thing's happening here with Charmander. Charmander, people are trying to sell it, $40 at pre-sale, and it comes down. I mean, according to TCG Player right now, it's about $20, but there's a last sold at $25, which is skewing things. The other two were $20 and $16. Frankly, whoever paid $25 for a Charmander overpaid. So once again, we see the other really hyped one, Pikachu and Charmander, by far the two big ones. And what we find is they are falling down very nicely, exactly like we might expect. But then there are a bunch of others which are not falling down. They are in fact going the other way, and some of these kind of make sense and some of them kind of don't. Let's take Pidgey. Since the release, Pidgey at pre-sale was $8, dropped down to $6 very quickly, and it's now like a $16-ish card. For Pidgey! For Pidgey! Except actually, this kind of makes sense. It's not what we would necessarily have expected, but we can look at this and I can give you an explanation. It's partly because, Pidgey, Gen 1, all of that, but is anyone out there really a massive Pidgey fan? I'm going to suggest not. No, the reality is Charizard is one of the best decks around right now, and Charizard is generally paired with Pidgeotto. Now, I'm not saying it's always paired with Pidgeotto, let's be clear. There are other ways to play the deck, but I'm saying as a general rule. It just got second place at the regional in Melbourne. Weirdly, didn't really show up in Knoxville. That's a bit weird. But this is the Pidgey. If you're looking for the Pidgey that everybody plays, it's this one. And there was a Pidgey in Obsidian Flames that had an illustration rare. It's not the good Pidgey though, is it? This is the good Pidgey. It's got 50 HP, which sucks, but it's also got Call for Family, which lets you get a couple of basic Pokemon, which is essentially why we choose this one. No, it's not perfect. No one's arguing it's perfect, but generally speaking, you have a look around at the lists that are doing well at the moment, it tends to be this Pidgey, because Call for Family will sometimes actually be super duper useful. So it is as simple as that. So okay, fine. This is at least the best version of Pidgey, and Pidgey's pretty cool. But what about Ditto? Because Ditto's doing the same thing. Ditto started life as a $5.50 card, and it's actually going up a little bit higher than Pidgey. If you have a look at the recent listings, you're talking about a $20 card. This is what it's selling for at the moment. And look, Ditto is a very popular Pokemon. It's another Gen 1 Pokemon, very popular Pokemon, and at the moment, it's seeing like almost no play. It's a really good card with a really good ability. Basically, turn 1, if it's active, you can switch it for a basic Pokemon in your deck other than Ditto. It's actually really good. Right now, it's seeing almost no play, but post-rotation, remember, we're losing Battle VIP Pass. So we are going to need a way to get our basics out. And one of the ways we're going to have to do that is Buddy Buddy Poffins. But Buddy Buddy Poffins only actually gets basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less. But then you can use Buddy Buddy Poffins to go and get this. And then this will go and search out something with a higher HP. And maybe that's it. Maybe people are literally just preparing for the rotation and thinking, well, this is going to go up in price. This is going to jump. Maybe there's a speculation going along those routes. That could be it. One of my favourites from the set is Snorlax, and Snorlax is jumping as well. Now, there's a couple of things to note about this Snorlax. Oh, I should say, this one jumped high. We started off at $6, went almost immediately up to $15. So when I'm talking about these cards spiking in price, I really mean it. We are seeing quite dramatic price spikes pretty much instantly within the first few days, and it is something which we weren't necessarily expecting. And like I say, it's not the obvious ones, the big hitters. It's a kind of second tier. And look, Snorlax is the second best Gen 1 Pokemon. Porygon's the first. I will not be taking questions. And that's got to be the reason here, because I like this Snorlax. It's a fun little Snorlax. It's clearly got a little bit of potential, but it's not the good one. This is a Snorlax that lets you take 2 leftovers from your discard pile and put them into your hand. It's really good for any deck that revolves around tools, like the Electrodes deck, for instance, which is, you know, that's the one where you can discard any number of Pokemon tools on your Pokemon, deal 40 damage for each one discarded this way. But it's also worth pointing out, Electrode has a shiny Pokemon version. You know, there's a shiny version of the card in Paldean Fates, and that one is not jumping. And we have a really good Snorlax right now. It's the one from Block, which came around in Pokemon Go. This is not that. This is not the Pokemon Go Snorlax, which is topping regionals all over the place at the moment. This is the bad Snorlax. So, it's clearly not a playability thing. It's blatantly not a playability thing. This is a, you know what? Snorlax is awesome kind of thing. And that's got to be the explanation, incidentally. There's no way that there's, well, I suppose maybe there's a way that some players have figured out this is about to get really good, but I'm not actually buying that. Is anyone out there thinking, well, you know, give me 5 minutes, this Snorlax is about to take over the metagame? No, obviously not. That is not where we are right now. There is a big spike happening, and it's frankly a little bit weird. Also, yes, for anyone paying attention, I have just told you about 3 that are spiking, and they are all colourless Pokemon. Mostly a coincidence, but it's kind of interesting to me. Another one we see jumping up quite nicely here is your Mimikyu. And this is another one where, although it's not one that anyone really saw coming, there is an explanation here. Firstly, Mimikyu is one of the most popular Gen 7 Pokemon, so we've got that. But also, it does have the Safeguard ability, prevents all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from EXs and Vs, and maybe that's your answer. This one is one that people are constantly predicting is just about to get really good. So maybe it is actually just about to get really good. Maybe we are at that stage where this is about to get really good, and there's some speculators that are buying it up for that. And then, of course, you've got the whole Mimikyu super popular as well, so maybe that is the answer. I'm not saying that that's where we are, but I'm saying that these are price rises we're not necessarily expecting. If Pikachu starts jumping up in price, we look at it and go, well, yeah, it's Pikachu. Everybody loves Pikachu. Of course, Pikachu is going to start just spiking up in price. It's Pikachu. But that is not what's happening here. Want a weirder one? Cypher. This one I don't really get. It's not like Scizor is about to take over the metagame as much as I want it to. Cypher on its own is fine. And again, there's some popularity there as a Gen 1 Pokemon. But we're not talking top tier in terms of popularity. We're not talking top terms of playability. We're seeing a Pokemon which has gone from $3.75 to about $6. Also, a lightly played for 11 is weird. And sure, now this is a point in a video where these are jumping, right? But we're talking from like $3 to $6. And the jump is absolutely happening. but it's a jump from like $3 to $6. This isn't like the Snorlax, which is all of a sudden jumping up to like a $15 card. Or the Pidgey, which is jumping up to about a $15 card. Or the Ditto, which is jumping up to a $20 card. These are all big jumps that are super weird. This is just a little bit, yeah. And there's plenty of others that we could have expected that aren't happening. Baxcalibur, super playable card. It's dropped from $10 down to like $6. And honestly, a lot of the clinging on is that you occasionally see someone paying like $10 for it, which honestly is way too high. Baxcalibur is one of the most playable cards that comes as a shiny Pokemon in Paldean Fates, and yet, no. And I'm going to show you one more just to show you how weird some of this is. Sizzle. Sizzle started life as an $8 card. It's now sitting at about a $5 card. Now remember, Cyber is seeing a big jump in price. One of the biggest explanations we could give for that is, well, you know what, that Sizzle's actually kind of playable. And look, you all know I got excited about this Sizzle. I tried to make this Sizzle work. I tried super hard to make this Sizzle work. It didn't work. I'm sorry, I promise you I tried. But this one's crashing in price, like we would expect it to. So in what world does it make any sense that the basic is jumping up in price, but a stage 1 that might actually be playable is crashing like we would expect? This is all a little bit weird, and like I say, there are a couple that are going up a bit, but there are some here, and I'm really looking at the colourless ones here, Pidgey, Ditto, Snorlax, that are really jumping up in price, and there's not a hugely great explanation. I've given you some explanations in terms of playability, or in terms of popularity. I've given you an idea, but really the answer here is very simply, they don't make a huge amount of sense. But now it's over to you guys. I want to know which of these cards you're getting excited about. I want to know which of these ones you pulled. I want to know which of these ones you bought. I want to know anything you want to tell me. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And of course, get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Star of Dav, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and seems to be a very lovely person. So, shout-outs to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far, the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.